Hello colors, my name is Teal and welcome to Kenshi. For once, I investigated a little bit about this game and I'm really excited. It's an open world survival game and the fun part is its randomness of events and the fact that surviving is hard. There is a variety of beginnings you can choose from. Each one has its own level of difficulty, amount of cash and playstyle, alongside a short description of your situation. For our first adventure, I chose the Wanderer beginning. Since the difficulty is default, you begin with 1,000 cats, yes, that's a currency in this game, and an RPG style. The story goes like this. You are just a lone wanderer with nothing but a few coins, a pair of pants and a rusty sword, ready to venture out in the world. This is the way the game is intended to be played. After choosing your beginning, you can create your main character, customizing it with a race with its special stats, a subrace, and gender. Afterwards, you can customize your appearance with as much detail as you want. So let me introduce to you our first brave adventurer, Leat, a human Greenlander male. The race description for humans goes like this. Primarily from farmer cultures, they still tend to be an aggressive race and are easily led astray. The worst of them live in ignorance, knowing only greed and fear, reacting to anything different with hatred and violence. But the best of them are some of the greatest civilized scientists, engineers and warriors in the land. Leat began in the border zone, wondering what to do with his life. He was in perfect health condition, although his skills were, well, non-existent. He was nearby another city and a lone shack. His first contact was with a nomad animal trader. These animals would help Leat to carry his stuff, fight alongside him, and even serve as food in case of emergency. He kindly asked if he needed to feed them, which the trader responded, "Of course you need to feed them, you moron." Douche. Of course they were too expensive for Leat's wallet. Leat needed money, that was for sure. So he started scavenging for whatever he found. Empty rum bottles, empty grog cans, water jugs, wooden bowls, and cups. He also needed a home, but the buildings in the city were too expensive. So he decided to go to the bar and see if he could find some answers there. There he thought about stealing, but he was way too inexperienced to start his journey like this. He decided to talk to the people of the bar. First, he spoke to Molly, a cook from the Drifters faction, who would gladly join in exchange for 6,000 cats? No way, Jose. A random bar thug told us some nice things. We then talked to Logan, also from the Drifters faction, a gunner, but again 6,000 cats. A mercenary captain would gladly loan some bodyguards for the cheap price of 2,000 cats per day. It was even more obvious Leat needed money. So Leat decided to go on an adventure outside the city walls. He saw a nomad caravan led by the first guy he ever spoke to and decided to follow them. On the way, he found another bar and decided to enter. There, he made his first transaction. He bought some building material to build his first shack. And there he had it, his first home. He then wanted to build a small research bench, and for that he needed more building material. He bought it, but he only had 21 cats left. He proceeded to build the bench. He sat down for a while to assume he was poor. He concluded he had to go to the border zone and scavenge for some abandoned goods. He sold them. After a big stop at the loo, he noticed a crippled bandit and was really tempted to steal from her since she was crippled. But his heart told him not to do it. With his new fortune of 207 cats, he went to explore outside of the city walls. He soon discovered a copper resource and decided to work on it to earn some more cats. He worked day and night until he collected 5 units of copper. He sold them for 207 cats each, and he bought some building materials and some green fruit. He then researched for a while for some blueprints. Leat was beginning his journey in the wild. While working on his house, he had his first meeting with outsiders. It was a holy priest. He wanted to give Leat some prayers and gave him the Holy Flame, a book that was mandatory to carry by law. Or that's what he said. After that, he proceeded to recite the prayers. Leat was constantly tempted to slap him or ignore him, but he wasn't in a position to gain enemies. So he continued with the prayers, and then the priest walked away, blessing him. He bought more building materials and built a well. He also continued with his green fruit farm and farmed copper and iron day and night. When his wealth grew, he decided he needed books to do some more research on his workbench. He learned how to make a small house, but he lacked materials and cats. Who would have said? More copper. Leat reached tech level 2 to build more things. A fabric manufacturer and a bunch of different storage boxes. He built a storage for copper and ore and proceeded to continue farming. Suddenly, near his shack, war broke loose. Starving bandits were fighting holy nations' outlaws. The religious faction had the upper hand. They even sent one bandit rolling around with no mercy. They won, although most of them were hurt. This only meant one thing: time to scavenge. Ironically, before that, a group of bandits arrived at Leat's outpost with some kind of demands. Scared by them, Leat ignored them and gave priority to emptying the corpses' pockets. He found some rag shirts, iron clubs, horse choppers, wooden sandals, and half plants. Meanwhile, the Holy Nation's outlaws finished a survivor. He stole a holy servant rag from him. At the same time, bandits were insisting on their petitions. But Leat continued to ignore them. He sold everything he could from the scavenge, but he noticed something. Some slave traders were enslaving the survivors of the previous battle. For a moment, it seemed bandits were about to sabotage and steal from Leat's shack, but then it was clear. Another fight was going to break. Another opportunity for Leat. The bandits were losing again, and it seemed the slave traders would have more working material on their hands. But it was time to scavenge in a more aggressive way. In the middle of the fight, Leat decided to steal from an unconscious slave monger. He saw some samurai cloth pants and didn't hesitate. But not everyone was fighting. A strong slave trader saw Leat and wanted to get the robbed object back. Leat had no chance and had to flee in order to avoid a combat. It's true the slave traders helped Leat to end the bandit demands, but the opportunity was too juicy for him. After running around, he finally managed to sneak behind a mountain, and the slave trader gave up. A small victory. While the slave traders were collecting their booty, Leat sold everything he could from his scavenge. Excitement filled his heart, and he began building the stone storage. He checked on some more leftovers of the previous fight and sold them. He then proceeded with his honest work, mining. He was dreaming of hiring a companion so he wouldn't feel so lonely. Halfway there, look at him. He looked so fancy and happy with those sandals. He finished building the stone storage and began with his stone mining industry. The priest from before paid him a second visit. After talking to him again and completing the ritual, Leat actually noticed he missed a fatal encounter in front of his favorite store. He scavenged again, sold everything continued with his honest work in his stone mining industry. Things were fine. But then a new day began. Lead was mining in this case, his own business when, surprise, some holy nation outlaws attacked him from behind and wanted to steal all his earnings and belongings. He tried to escape. He even defended himself, but it was in vain. Before he even knew it, he was KO'd and fatally wounded on the stomach. If only he had had a companion. He was halfway there, fighting his way to hire a friend, but the raw world of Kenshi hit him in the face. Even the bandits didn't care for him and just made their demands, careless about the poor guy's condition. One last fight broke out between bandits. One even breakdanced, laughing at Leat'S fate. Why did they attack him? Was it without reason? Or was it because he didn't carry the holy flame? Either way, Lead died on the 10th day at 10 a.m., bleeding out in the middle of a sandstorm, unnoticed, in a terrible pain and, above all, alone. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Kenshi and Lead's life. If you had a fun time, leave a like and consider subscribing. See you in the next episode, colors. Bye bye.